they don't have American sports television. They have ESPN International, which is American sports without commentary. And can I just say that it is deliciously better?
Yeah.
It is so much better without the constant sideline reporter interference. Yeah, it was a pleasure to watch football this week, on vacation or whatever.
I'm sure it was also just nice to be in Jamaica.
Well, there's a lot of thoughts I have about that. That I'm never going back again ever. We had a great time, but the resort lifestyle is just not. It's not for us. There's lots of people go to those resorts and they want to make friends and they want you to come sit at their table and they want to go do activities together, and it just becomes a living hell.
Honestly, sounds like my worst nightmare, actually.
And all of them are from Canada or Iowa or Michigan.
all those countries.
They're probably swingers.
Yeah, and there you get that vibe where it's like, well, because we went to an adults only thing or whatever, and it's just this weird, creepy, intrusive vibe that you're like, I didn't sign up for this cruise. Like,
you want to come back to our room and try on clothes?
No. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, because there are several reasons that I would want to go to a resort, and none of them involve meeting other people.
Yeah, dude, that was not our intention. People wanted to ask what we were reading, ask about our books, all that kind of stuff.
I'm in Jamaica.
I'm reading a book by a guy who's been dead for 1,000 years on some random Greek word in the Septuagint.
I'm reading a book by Bavinck, just a study of my old seminary history. Good good dogma book. It's stay away. I've never thought that reading a book is a signal for inviting other people to come talk to you, but apparently to resorties, that's the term we created. It is.
That's a good term. That's a good term.
Just ask them if they want to talk about politics.
I'm like, hey, what do you think about the wall? Let's talk about that while we're at it.
Yeah, might as well.
God.
Well, yeah. We're here. You say, what do you think about the wall? And whatever they say, you just take the opposite position.
Yeah, just go the opposite. Yeah, totally.
You racist.
Man.
No matter what they say.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is running out the clock. And thank you for joining us. My name is Joseph Craven. I will be your tour guide this evening.
That was weak. I'm so sorry.
For ROTC. This is, of course, the podcast where we I don't know. What do we do?
Let's be real. This is the podcast that if any of us are ever elected to office, we'll come back to ruin our career.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Dude.
This is the government shutdown edition of the podcast.
This is the podcast equivalent of a government shutdown. Welcome to Running Out the Clock.
Now that
I'm Joseph Craven. As always, it doesn't matter who else is on the show, and we are here to discuss. I guess SEC football still. I mean, it's what people in the South do in January is discuss SEC football.
It matters more, man.
It just means so much more. Than anything else. Hey, at the time in which you're listening to this, you'll either have a quote-unquote national championship game to watch or to think about having watched because it is already done. And that's pretty nifty.
Congratulations to the Alabama Crimson Tide on their 100th championship.
Right. They've won at every championship every single year, depending on what poll you look at.
Yep.
The Bear Bryant Memorial Poll. So it was called the Memorial Poll even when he was alive. It was the weirdest thing.
Well, we did host a Memorial Crawfish Bowl for you one year.
Yeah,
That's true.
The T-shirt of that, I think that there's a bunch of those T-shirts that might have ended up at a Goodwill. So everyone knows.
Oh man, your face randomly around town.
Yeah,
on the body of a crawfish. It's my greatest nightmare.
I still just love the tagline, the boil so hard that fish cray.
That fish cray.
That fish cray.
I really wanted to put that on my youth group at the Times T-shirt, but I was worried if any of my elders figured out what that meant, that I would get fired. But I got fired anyway, so it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah. I mean, you were still doing a good enough job for that. So
yeah. Doing the Lord's work.
With the season done, mercifully done. We now get to look back a little bit and maybe just, hit on some of the, because we did.
Will you remember me?
Shut up, Sarah McLachlan.
Keith has been muted. So obviously at the beginning of the season, we did a lot of preview episodes and we kind of gave predictions for how things we thought were going to go for the season as a whole, like the SEC standings. We kind of previewed the teams and like individually, like what we kind of thought about them, what we not necessarily how like we thought they would do, but we did give this kind of I believe the what was the question we gave? Or something along the lines of will they be like better? Not necessarily like win more games or anything like that, but will they be better? Something like that. So now we're going to look back, since we weren't talking about like the wins themselves, the wins, losses, all of that at the time. We're going to look back and do that again, where we're not necessarily specifically looking at the wins and losses. In that regard, we're looking at how the season went for the team, and whether or not we thought that it was a success for them or a failure. What we're going to do is we're going to highlight each of us. I think this is what we all agreed on. Each of us will go down the line and we'll pick one team from each division for each of those categories. So one team in particular that we look at and we're just like, well, this season was just a success for them. And no, like we're not going to like talk about, Alabama necessarily, because obviously the season is a success for them. But like the teams, that actually, we look at.
If Alabama were to lose tomorrow, would the season be a success for them? Kind of based on the own standard they've created?
No, but that doesn't matter. For now, you can talk about Alabama if you want to. That's perfectly fine. But what I'm saying
I can assure you I do not want to.
It does not necessarily. It will not necessarily be Alabama. So we're going to look at the successes and the failures. So the question is, gentlemen, where are we going to start? East or West?
West is best.
Yeah, let's go to the West.
Okay. All right. We're going to start in the West then. Let's start with, on the positive note, let's start with a team in the West that you thought just had a successful season, and why you think that they did. What's your pick there? I guess we'll do what we normally do and run in alphabetical order and start with Chandler. Chandler, who's a team in the West that you thought had a successful season?
Is nobody an acceptable answer?
No, it's absolutely not.
I think
they all killed each other.
I think it's probably LSU, because their kind of expectation from a lot of people was that the season was going to be a bit of a disaster, that the wheels were going to fall off, and they never really did. Even though their defense was really, really good, their offense kind of figured it out enough, and so kind of based on at least what I thought LSU was going to do, they turned out to be a surprise. Even though, kind of at the end of the year, I still don't really trust Joe Burrow. I think that if they had a decent quarterback on the roster, he would lose his job. But, a lot of credit to that defense. And, so I'd say LSU, I guess.
That's elite rushing quarterback Joe Burrow to you, sir.
Yeah.
Yes. Heisman candidate for next season, Joe Burrow.
Get it right. I'm not going to disagree with you at all on that, but what I am going to, I don't know, quasi disagree with. Not really. It's not even disagree. I'm going to give Joe Burrow a lot of props. He got better and better every game this season, and by the end of the season, he was a decent quarterback. Truth be told, and I think that was the main reason that they were not catastrophic failure of a team that I think we all predicted them to be at the beginning of the year. So whoops on us. Yeah.
Well, and I think they set themselves up nicely to run into next season as a team that might can do some damage, some real damage, because that defense is going to stay really good, and maybe Burrow improves, because that's always one of the things that I think we forget about with quarterbacks, is especially first year quarterbacks. And he's Obviously not a freshman, but he's a transfer, and so it takes some time to build chemistry with your players, and even your offensive line kind of learning how to block for you, to expect you where to be on a play, things like that. So maybe it sets them up nicely for next season.
Yeah, I mean, Burrow even ended the season in the Fiesta Bowl with almost 400 yards passing and 4 touchdowns
over the defending national champions.
The defending national champions, UCF. So unbelievable year for him. Yeah. Anyway, I thought, I'm right there with you on that one. It was, but I do like, I do like the fact that Joe Burrow seemed to get better every week. Anyway, Keith, how about you? Who's someone that you think in the West had a successful season?
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Chandler on that, mostly because they're kind of the default pick because everybody kind of went how they were supposed to, except for maybe Auburn. I mean, most people, like Chandler said, thought that LSU was kind of heading for like a 6-6 sort of a year, just kind of okay, but not anywhere near where they wanted to be, and that Orgeron was probably going to get fired by the end of the year. But Orgeron got them ready. They surprised everybody and beat Miami first game of the year, and went into that Florida game at 5-0. And they had kind of a tough game against them. Played against Alabama, I think how everybody expected them to, and then of course had that really crazy game against Texas A&M. But they had a really good year, and they've got a really good recruiting class coming in this year. So good for them.
Ro, you got any other statements there? You agree
yeah,
with them?
I actually do agree, just because we were all so like
you the robot. The robot showed up for a second there.
Oh man, well, bleep boop blop bloop. Let me rewind that. I said that I gladly agree with everyone here about LSU, just because we were all so wrong about them. Like we really were planning their destruction in August. Like we were totally wrong about them. So, but I'm gonna pick somebody different. I'll pick Texas A&M because they actually beat LSU in that amazing game that Keith just mentioned. That really was like an incredible game. That was, honestly, that probably was the best game in the entire conference this whole year. Was LSU? Thank you, Madden. Madden also agrees with me, my dog. And then they also like destroyed NC State. I mean, they beat them by like 40 points or something crazy like that. Like, if I was a Texas A&M fan, I'd be feeling pretty confident ending the season like this. They lost a few games, but they lost to like Clemson, who is playing in the national championship tomorrow. And, Clemson's they're not terrible by any stretch of the imagination. That Clemson defense, like, absolutely is
Clemson
legit.
Football, not bad.
Not bad.
But yeah, you have to make that clarification, because when you talk about, success in the SEC West, if you talk to an Alabama fan, I guess it's like, well, they must suck because they don't win. They literally are the Ricky Bobbies of all of football. It's like, if you're not first, you're last. And so you have to say that. It's like, all right, well, look at Texas A&M. There was a transition year, new Jimbo Fisher offense, whatever he does.
That's the most appropriate comparison I've ever heard in college football.
It's so true, though.
I was drunk when I said that. You could finish second or third, fourth. Hell, you could even finish fifth.
That's going to be Bama fans after Nick Saban leaves.
Daddy, you told me I got to face my fears. Why'd you put a Puma in the car? Because everybody's scared of a Puma. Yeah, I love that movie. But yeah, I'm saying
Crystal Gale shirt.
Ruin my Crystal Gale shirt. I love that movie so much.
It's such a good movie.
Was that? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Texas A&M. So congrats to them.
Yeah.
So, congrats on Jimbo Fisher's nephew.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that one.
Getting rocked.
I don't know what you're talking about. So, Yeah, I'm right there with you, Rode. Texas A&M is actually my pick in this one because it was a team that I think I did not have any expectations for this year. And to do what they did in particular with, a new coaching staff and him, going with probably players that don't really fit what he would want to build around, but being able to work with it the way that he did. Yeah, Texas A&M is my pick for a very successful season this year out of the West for sure. You go down the list. Yeah, LSU handled the adversity very, very well, but Texas A&M still technically claimed that second spot in the West from them in a year in which, I honestly thought A&M would be fifth at best.
Yeah, and I think the conversation around the West, especially considering that Alabama is the standard in the West, I think the conversation is more about who's kind of set themselves up to maybe compete with them in the next few years. And I think you can see, 3 or 4 teams in the West that clearly did not do that, and then 2 teams that did. And I think LSU and A&M are the 2 teams that did.
Well, it makes me wonder a question too out loud. Thinking of what you just said, Chandler, who do you all think that Nick Saban is genuinely afraid of as far as coaches? Because I feel like Jimbo Fisher actually does make a good case for him to be afraid of a little bit, just because there's history there between them. But who would he be afraid of, or who would be the person to challenge him, I guess, in the SEC?
Look, by his own admission, only Jesus can handle Hugh Freeze's job, not even Saban. So it's got to be Freeze, right?
God, dude, I'll set you up for that one. You're welcome.
What a quote. What a quote.
If I had to guess, I would say within 4 years, A&M is in the shape that Jimbo left Florida State in.
Oh wow,
it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah,
it really wouldn't surprise me either.
Yeah, that's what I would. That's what I would guess. So,
he's got like $60 million just burning a hole in his pocket.
Well, sure, yeah, but I that's what, if you ask me about you asked me about who is setting themselves up for the future. I don't know if anyone is to compete with Alabama still until Saban is gone. So,
I'll try to break that Lazarus pit.
Yeah, sounds good. Go for it.
Our own deep cover operative, Chandler Allen.
People still can't say my last name right.
I refuse to.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure he just did. I heard him. It sounded
like Rollins.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I still don't understand why you're being so weird about that.
It sounded like Rollins. Isn't that right?
Yeah. That's exactly it. Chandler Rollins.
Yeah.
We all know your name.
Yeah.
We all know it.
J.K. Rollins.
Yeah, exactly. Not sneaking up on anybody over here with that name, you never know with the West. I think you're absolutely right. Overall, sure, who is actually setting themselves up. But for this one particular season, A&M did a heck of a job in my eyes, and I think that they will implode on themselves. So,
good job this year, boys. We'll see you in the dumpster in 5 years.
Right, exactly. On the other end of the spectrum, though, who had I guess a failure of a season in your eyes in the West? The answer could be third place or fourth place and down. But Chandler, who in particular do you have here?
I think it's. Look, you can make a case for Arkansas. You can make a case for Ole Miss. You can make a case for Mississippi State. And then I feel like there's one other team that we're just forgetting. Oh, Auburn.
Auburn, yeah.
Maybe it's Auburn because I just forgot that they existed.
Right, you totally forgot what Auburn was.
That's what I was going to pick.
What a great setup, Chandler. Good job.
Ole Miss and Arkansas are the low-hanging fruit. They were terrible and there was like you can't look at either team's season and say, oh well, this is the indication that maybe things aren't as bad as they appear, or that they should have been better. I mean, you can't say that about either one of them. So I think that, I think it's got to be Auburn, because Auburn has theoretically a really good defense, and they had an experienced quarterback who was really, really good last year, and they beat Alabama last year. They played in the SEC championship last year, and it looked like this season that Gus Malzahn was maybe a game or two away from losing his job. And maybe if Bob Stoops had been a little bit more open to returning to the college game, that he would have lost his job, because I think that's my gut tells me that's what happened kind of at the end of the season when they were talking about maybe being ready to fire him. I think that if Bob Stoops had told him, yeah, I'll come coach Auburn, then they would have fired him. So I think it's got to be Auburn, just because of what they did last season, and it seemed like they returned a lot, and the expectations were high, and they were not super impressive this year.
Yeah. Keith, how about you?
Yeah. This is kind of boring, but again, I'm gonna have to agree with Chandler.
The most boring thing you can do on the podcast.
I mean,
it's because I'm always right.
Yeah,
maybe because I'm always first.
Right.
And of course, we just talked about if you ain't first, you're last.
Right, exactly.
Full circle.
I mean, Arkansas did, I think, exactly what people expected them to do, and that was be like historically awful.
Are you saying that maybe they are who we thought they were?
Yes. Hey, Ro, can you say that for us?
We are who we thought they are. Got it. Nailed it on the first try.
Yeah, flawless.
Nailed it. But yeah, like again, everyone picked Auburn to kind of be at that second spot and kind of challenge Alabama, because, like you said, Chandler, they were supposed to have a really good defense, and of course, Jared Stidham was getting a lot of praise because of the year that he had last year, and rightfully so. And then he pretty much immediately pooped the bed, and the rest of the Auburn offense pooped the bed for the entire year.
As one well-known NBA TV announcer would say, he pooped his big boy pants.
Yes,
that is.
Yes. And what is that announcer's name?
I have no idea, but it was a great call.
I love that you said one well-known announcer, and I was like, I don't remember who it is. I know you didn't remember.
It has to be. We'll just say Dick Vitale. Why not? That sounds like something to say.
Yeah,
this big boy pants.
I mean, they.
That was about the gusto it was said with.
Yeah.
He kind of yelled, but like through gritted teeth because he was having a heart attack. Yeah, it just. Even their wins were terrible wins, and it was just a rough season for them. And of course, they were pretty much one loss away at playing against Ole Miss from having Gus Malzahn fired on the sidelines and then launched into space.
Right.
It was Houston Rockets announcer Craig Ackerman.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we all knew that.
Yeah.
Well known.
The well-known Craig. I've already forgot his last name.
Yeah, it was almost pointless of you to have even told us that.
Yeah, we all knew it. We all
on this podcast knew
that. Right there on the tip of our tongues.
I have his name tattooed to my chest. Yeah, so Auburn.
Guys are mean.
Auburn was terrible, and that's all I've got to say about that.
I mean, a solid assessment. Ro?
As terrible as you can be at an 8-5 year.
Yeah.
Ro, before you answer, remember that you picked Mississippi State to go undefeated and win the national championship.
That's literally like judging by my own definition of success, not anyone else's, because I picked State to go to the Natty Championship. Yeah. Was I biased in my pick? Debatable. I'm not going to admit fault just yet, but it might have been an error in judgment on my part. Did they have an unsuccessful year? Well, It's hard for me to say yes to that because I remember a time where State only had unsuccessful years for a very long period of time, mostly while I was in college. So we were on the plus side of things. The first year head coach, I don't, I'm not going to pick them. I'm not going to pick them. I'm going to pick Auburn again and stay boring just because I genuinely forgot that Auburn existed. Like, that's how their year went. I never paid attention to anything they did really. Like, nothing about their team really ever intrigued me. Nothing that I never liked watching. Sometimes I liked watching Ole Miss. Sometimes I even liked watching Arkansas just because such a dumpster fire. But I never liked or even kept up with any of the Gus Malzahn stuff just because it was so disinteresting. Based upon my own definition of an unsuccessful year, that's it. I just forgot about that. And they were kind of a dark horse contender as well, like State. It's funny that both of them kind of ended up like right there next to each other in the conference.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's my answer. I'm keeping it boring, so nothing crazy.
Yeah, I mean it's all a very valid, a very good point. They only won 3 conference games. I mean, after being a team that people thought were going to be pushing second place for sure in the West. But I am going to go with Mississippi State as my choice here for having a very unsuccessful season. And I won't necessarily go into too much detail because, dear listener, if you really want to go into my thoughts on the matter, I highly suggest you listen to the episode of The Weekly Pessimist that I released last week, where I discuss it in detail. So there you go. Having to get more downloads and listens on the podcast on a separate episode.
Yeah, dog.
But Mississippi State and Auburn were almost identical teams coming into the season. Defense is built around a strong, stout defensive line. Offense is built around returning veteran quarterbacks. It just like they were very, very similar teams. And so to see both of them, kind of bomb out the way that they did and only reach 8-5 status was, it's a very negative thing for two teams that were almost the same and kind of thinking they would be, second, third, place in the West and not be able to achieve those things. But at the end of the day, the ultimate summation for Mississippi State is that at the beginning of the year, I said I thought they had the lowest ceiling, highest floor, and they absolutely hit their own floor with only 8 wins on the year. So, they're my choice because this was a team that was built for. The ceiling was only 10 wins, but this is a team that was built for 10 wins and only got 8. So,
well, you know what they say, Joseph. You know what they say.
I don't know.
They say that one man's ceiling is another man's floor. Am I right or am I right?
A very well-known sports broadcaster said that one time.
I believe
Craig Ackerman. That's right. Keith has Craig Ackerman's name tattooed on his chest and then has that quote tattooed on his back.
Mm-hmm.
We've all seen it because Keith is naked around us a tremendous amount of time.
It's kind of odd.
Basically constantly.
Wasn't it Michael Jordan who once famously said the roof is the ceiling?
I think
something to that effect.
He said the roof is on fire.
Yep.
Yeah, that was Michael Jordan.
He said that as he hit 100 home runs.
He was terrible at baseball. He only had like 50 RBIs after having not played in 15 years. That's the thing that amazes me.
I don't disagree with that statement.
I get that he did not have a great season in the minor leagues, but also he hadn't played baseball in a long time.
And it would be like any of us right now, being I'm going to quit our day jobs and going and doing something totally different that we used to do when little kids or something.
Yeah,
right, but without all of the freakish and natural athleticism that he had.
Exactly.
Speak for yourself, bro.
He went off and did what he hadn't done since high school and still did it better than a lot of minor leaguers did. I don't know. It's interesting to actually think about that. All right.
And he saved humanity from the Monstars.
Right.
He did.
Dude.
He did.
All while playing.
Shout out to Monstars.
Just remember that if I hit them high, then you hit them low.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hit him low, yeah.
Probably the biggest crime in all of the recent R. Kelly stuff that has been coming out is the fact that you can get his contributions to the Space Jam soundtrack on Spotify, but you can't get Hit 'Em High on Spotify. It's not on there.
What?
Yeah.
That is immoral.
Right? Yeah, exactly. You guys want to talk about the SEC East, or you just want to be done?
Yeah.
We're done.
Just be done. This has been running out the clock. Thank you for listening.
Goodbye.
Click.
Yeah.
That's the phone hang up sound.
Nobody under the age of like 15 will ever get that. They'll never know what click is, other than it's just a rip.
Or like a dial tone.
Somebody gave Judson a toy rotary phone, and I was like,
"Yeah."
He at no point in his life is this ever going to make sense to him.
No.
That's like somebody giving us a hammer and chisel whenever we were younger.
I get the concept. I get the concept.
But that's different, because what if your family trade is like stonemasonry, like a hammer and chisel? That would be you'd be used to that. Yeah. So there's still some use for that. There's no use for a rotary phone anymore.
There's professional rotary phone athletes out there now, dude.
See, I think what's going to happen with this phone stuff, it's going to be like Broadway and theater. It's as if two people formed of this big divide because they had the invention of the microphone, but yet I can go to Broadway and they still shout music at me. I'm like, there's microphones. You don't have to shout it at me anymore.
Shout music.
It's like not fun because they're shouting so loudly their show tunes, and I'm like, you could just sing it into a microphone and we could turn the volume down.
When's the last time you went to a Broadway show?
I would say
you went and saw Hamilton.
I did not see Hamilton. I saw Wicked in 2011. So
and I had not used microphones for that.
No, they might have.
Yeah.
They were still shouting at him though.
I think I'm thinking more of Shakespearean actors at the Globe. You know, a lot of show
park, right?
A lot of showtimes coming from Shakespeare's Cats. It's really good.
This has been This Week in First World Problems.
We talk about our love of the Broadway musical Cats by William Shakespeare. All right. Speaking of William Shakespeare, coach of the Tennessee Volunteers, over in the SEC East, we have to talk about successes and failures on the season. Chandler, you want to start things off again, or do you want to go in reverse order?
I mean, is the answer anybody but Kentucky?
Yeah, it has to be.
I mean, maybe Florida.
I'd say Florida just to be different, but yeah, it's Kentucky.
I mean, Kentucky just reeled off a 10-win season for the first time since the 70s. They were legitimately good, and it wasn't like a kind of fluke thing. And even in their bowl game, it was impressive because Penn State kind of Trace McSorley kind of got hot and started really pushing to make it a game at the end, and Kentucky just kind of bowed up and ended the game on their own terms. And so, anytime you see Kentucky winning 10 games, I don't think it mattered. Like, I think that like Georgia could actually compete and win the Super Bowl, and that still wouldn't be, Georgia could defeat the Monstars, and that still wouldn't be as impressive as Kentucky winning 10. So,
right, because we know their weakness at this point is just stretching really far.
Yeah,
very predictable team.
Yep. So it's got to be Kentucky.
I mean, any disagreement with you, Keith Harkins?
If they can stretch their hands really far, then it shouldn't be any issue picking off Terry Wilson a million times.
I mean, that's true. I don't know. I've seen enough Kentucky games to know that the officials are very heavily on Kentucky's side. So
true. They would call all those fouls from the Space Jam game.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm going to be a homer. I'm going to say Florida, just because Kentucky
lost to Kentucky.
Yeah, they sure did. Everyone was about to burn the earth down after that happened, including myself.
Mm-hmm.
But Kentucky, like, they finished third in the East last year, won 7 games. So they improved 2 games on the year, not counting bowl games. And like the biggest reason why I say Florida is because of how much of a like absolute tire fire they were last year. It was awful. It was depressing. They fired a coach midseason because he lied about people throwing bricks through his windows, and death threats against him and his family.
Not laughing at that. Just I forgot.
It was a weird year last year.
Also, because of the picture of that naked dude with that shark,
a
whole lot like Jim McElwain.
Yeah,
it didn't just look a whole lot like him. Like it was his doppelganger.
Yeah, I think that's the definition of doppelganger. But yeah.
No, the definition of a doppelganger is somebody that looks exactly like you, not just a whole lot like you.
You're right. I'm sorry. That was such a drastic difference.
The German doesn't always translate.
Yeah. Look, Chandler, words matter.
Well, I'm not going to argue with you on that one.
Not all words matter. Okay, let's continue.
Hashtag all life. All words matter.
All words matter.
But they pretty much made huge strides in every measurable offensive statistic this year. Usually going from around like 107th in the country to like around like 40th or 30th. So, yes.
They're a good pick.
That was very distracting.
They're a good pick.
Yeah, so huge turnaround for them, but also huge shout out to the Kentucky Wildcats for having an insanely good year, leading the SEC East and only giving up 132 points, which is bonkers.
Seems decent.
Yeah, that seems all right.
It's not bad at all.
But still only scoring like 146. They had trouble on offense, but their defense was good.
Well, they could only do one thing, but that one thing worked really well for them.
Yeah, but then when that one thing stopped working, Terry Wilson stepped up and was like, "Oh yeah, I have a throwing arm."
Yeah, no big deal. I'll just suddenly have a 300-yard passing game for no reason. I'm like, what in the world? That was the weirdest thing to me this season, and that's maybe the most notable thing about Kentucky to me is like how all of a sudden out of nowhere it was just like, oh, I mean, people are stopping Benny Snell now. Like his 38 carries a game aren't going to get him through anymore, and then Terry Wilson's like, actually, let me do this real quick.
I'll just start having 250-yard games every week now.
Yeah, it's as if like Stoops didn't know that he could throw the ball, and he's like, "Hey, coach,
would you look at that?"
He just discovered the forward pass. I mean,
right? Oh, so good.
So back to the 30s.
Ro, anything you want to add to that?
My pick is Kentucky, although a close second to the University of Tennessee, because the University of Tennessee football is back, baby. Back with a vengeance. They finished
#VFL, baby.
They didn't finish last. They finished 6th or 7th or 5th, maybe. I don't know. I didn't
transition to the failure side of this.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I mean, I have to pick Kentucky. I think Dan Mullen at Florida was a nice surprise, and I think Keith would also agree with this. That I don't think they really expected Florida to be that much improved, But nobody saw Kentucky coming. I mean, like when they played State or whatever, I thought
Kentucky.
I thought State was going to roll over them or whatever, but Kentucky. They were good, and they were legitimately good, like in all facets of the game, like you were just pointing out, where it's like, oh yeah, like I can throw the ball. I forgot.
Whoops.
This
would have been nice to have known earlier in the season, I guess.
Yeah. So yeah, Benny Snell you later in the NFL. So.
Yeah, they're good. I would also echo giving praise to Florida. In particular, what Dan Mullen was able to do in his first season with
his name is Don Merlins.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, with head quarterback Felipe Franks. Sure. But yeah, his work with Franks was really impressive because obviously Merlins has that reputation of developing quarterbacks, but I don't know if I've ever seen him come in and take a quarterback and like in one season do what he was able to do. And Franks being one of the top touchdown passers in the conference, which is really cool. But let's not forget that, we had bowl eligible Vanderbilt this season.
Oh, yeah.
True.
With 3 conference victories, the same conference record as Auburn.
Oh, yeah.
Noted failure, Auburn.
Yeah, let's not forget that Vanderbilt had themselves a bowl game this year. And not only that, but Vanderbilt also found quite a fun offense to watch with Shermer, with Keyshawn Vaughn, their running back. I mean, that was
Keyshawn Vaughn, truth.
Yeah, that dude is a beast. But that was a fun little offense. So I got to give a shout out, give credit to Vanderbilt. I think they had a good year. And maybe if any Vanderbilt fans are listening, the 3 of you out there, and want to tell me that this year was not successful, let me know. I feel like it was a pretty good year for Vanderbilt. So I got to give them credit there. But
also hung with Baylor for the game, like made a game out of it.
They did. That they did. I assume. I didn't watch it. So anyway, Chandler, how about on the other end of the spectrum?
I feel like the East is kind of the bizarro West, whereas like if everybody in the West was a little disappointing, everybody in the East kind of did exactly what you thought they were going to do.
Or slightly better,
Or slightly better. And so that's why I'm going to pick Tennessee, because I love to pick Tennessee to be terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And they were terrible, even though they did get a win over Auburn, which again kind of speaks to Auburn's Auburn season. But Kentucky just looked, not Kentucky, Tennessee just looked utterly incompetent in every other game they played. And this whole idea that somehow, Jeremy Pruitt's like he's the guy, he was an assistant under Saban, man, and Butch Jones is in the marching band in high school, but Jeremy Pruitt played football, man. He's got the balls back on. No, he doesn't. He's barely qualified to be a high school coach, and it's not. It's not. I don't know. I'm not going to say it's not going to work, but this year was really bad for him, and I think that they were kind of thinking that. I think looking at the East and saying, hey, maybe Tennessee could get to 6-6 and get to a bowl game, maybe, but they didn't, and they lost to Vanderbilt, and Ole Miss also lost to Vanderbilt, and that's embarrassing. So, what is happening?
I have no idea. Keith just got attacked by his TV, I think.
What?
So, Keith, are you okay? Seems like an old woman broke into your house.
I know. Like, what just happened? Are you okay?
She was trying to sell me brooches.
Well, how many, dude? Pick me up one.
Yeah, seriously. Hold on now. I'm interested.
Yeah.
You got a good deal?
We had a nice jeweled beetle brooch for you guys.
I'm going to wear my nice bejeweled elephant brooch tomorrow.
Ooh.
Fancy.
But, I don't know.
Sorry to interrupt your Tennessee bashing.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it seemed like Tennessee people were looking for a bit more of an improvement than just, well, the boys played hard all year. You give them that credit. They didn't seem to quit. They just weren't any good. Right. And I haven't looked at how their recruiting or anything went, but it doesn't seem like that. It doesn't seem like they're really kind of poised to threaten Georgia or Florida anytime soon. And if you're Tennessee, you have this expectation that you're going to be first in the East and playing against Alabama for the championship, and they are a long way away from that, in my opinion. So, Rocky Top.
Good old Rocky Top. Yeah, it was
it's a great bluegrass song, but it's a terrible fight song.
So anyway, they were they were a frustrating team, and they're just a mess. They're just a mess, and who knows what the future will have. But yeah, bad year. Keith, what do you think in the East?
Let's just keep this boring train rolling. Get it? Chandler Rowland. I finally said his name right, but it's not. It's Chandler Rowland.
Who are you talking about? I legitimately do not know who it is that you're discussing. So.
I said that I was going to keep. Anyway, Tennessee. You see, what happened was I made a joke.
You made a joke and no one laughed.
Tennessee's hopefulness.
Because it wasn't funny.
Thank you. Anyway, Tennessee's hopefulness lasted all of one half against West Virginia before they got dummied in the second half.
And Will Greer claimed their soul.
Yep, and then went on to have a season in which all their losses were by like 1 billion points, and all their wins were very close. They got dummied by Florida, having 6 turnovers, one of which is the funniest turnover I've ever seen in my entire life, where their tight end is running for a touchdown, just like bowling balls it through the back of the end zone. Turn around, they get dummied by Georgia. They get ripped by Bama. Lose a close one to South Carolina. Somehow beats Auburn. But LOL Auburn in that game almost got Gus Malzahn fired.
Yep.
Somehow beat Kentucky, and then just when they were hoping to go to a bowl game, Missouri and Vanderbilt crushed all hope in Knoxville.
Yeah, so they lost to West Virginia by 26. They lost to Florida by 26.
Mm-hmm.
They lost to Georgia by 26. They lost to Alabama by 37. They hung with South Carolina, lost by 3, and they lost to Missouri by 33, and then Vanderbilt by 25. 25 point L to Vanderbilt. Not good.
Yeah.
It's real bad.
And of course, both of those last games, had either one of them been a win, they were going to a bowl game, and they couldn't figure out a way to beat Missouri at home or Vanderbilt.
But look, that 59-3 victory over East Tennessee State.
Also, they only beat
that's instilling faith.
Yeah, it should. It should.
They only beat Charlotte by 11. 14-3.
Don't hate on the Mocs.
Don't sleep on Charlotte. I don't think Charlotte are the Mocs, but
they're the 49ers.
Yeah.
Who was the Mocs? Chattanooga. My bad.
Yeah,
Chattanooga.
Apologies to Charlotte and Chattanooga.
The University of Tennessee.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tough year for them. I do think that they were hoping to go bowling, but as we just said, Missouri and Vanderbilt had other plans, and I laughed merrily because that's what Florida fans do whenever Tennessee gets slapped.
Yeah.
I am gonna pick UGA for my failure of a year this year, mostly because
strategy, Cotton. Let's see how it pays off.
Mostly because of how the year has ended for them. Texas football is back. They got beat by the Longhorns. See, Georgia was having a great poised year until they met the bonesaw known as Swamp Magic called LSU, because who predicted that game? Anyone in the country would have picked UGA because UGA was an extremely talented team. Like, they brought back a ton of people. They had an excellent quarterback. And then at the end of the year that happened last week, my beloved hometown hero, Justin Fields, decides to transfer, and he's going to join Tater Tot Martrell in Ohio State. That fact alone should have Georgia fans just going, woo-hoo! And there's nothing – look, I love watching Alabama fans get butthurt. That's pretty good. But UGA fans are just that much better. That's just a little icing on the cake whenever they're a letdown. I grew up around a lot of them, and they genuinely believe – Georgia, they believe that they have won all of the championships that Alabama has won. Now, we all live in reality, and we know that's not true. The UGA fan does not know. They have no idea. So I like it when UGA fans have to realize the reality that they will probably not win anytime soon, as long as Nick Saban is alive and well. And also, I just like some of the play calls with Kirby Smart as well. I like his offense. Color me not impressed. Good stringent defense, but I did not like what I saw from old Kirby Smart using Aaron. What's his name? Not Aaron Murray. What's the quarterback's name?
That's Aaron Murray.
Jake from State Farm.
Jake from State Farm. That's
Aaron
right.
Murray, quarterback of the Atlanta Legends in the Association of American Football.
Aaron Murray is legit.
That's a plug. That's a plug for the future of this podcast.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Also, Joseph did correctly predict the LSU Georgia game.
Did you really, Joseph?
I don't think I did. No.
Yeah, you did. I'm looking at the spreadsheet right now.
Oh wow.
My
okay.
God.
I knew somebody here did.
Look, you can bring your opinions, but Keith has got a spreadsheet.
Yeah, apparently. My bad.
Dude.
Didn't realize that. Wow. I mean, I've got the spreadsheet in front of me too, but I was not looking at that. I only remember correctly predicting Auburn's season to be 8-5 and correctly predicting Florida State for almost the entire season. So, like, the two worst things that I could have gotten right, like the two dumbest, nonsensical BS things I could have gotten right, I totally did. So good for me this year.
Yeah, there you go.
I think we should give you like an extra 2 points for those two things.
Yeah, I mean, it'll make a huge difference in our runnings for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, it won't. No, it won't. I think I'm gonna have to go with Missouri for me in terms of a team that was very disappointing on the season because they looked poised to take that Kentucky spot of being like the outlier who pushes towards the top of the conference. And, just at no point, even with a decent 4-4, 8-5 overall, like even with all of that, neither they or South Carolina ever actually looked like they ever were going to be one of the three best teams in the SEC East. They just had too many holes. They had too much inconsistency. And I think they're both disappointing seasons because of that. Probably good seasons in general. I think Missouri, with Drew Lock having the year that he had and being the type of player that he was, and I think the fact that he gambled in coming back, but his relationship with Derek Dooley as the OC really actually worked out quite well, and they had a good partnership. So that's all good and everything. But at the end of the day, Missouri never really looked like they were really going to push for a top half of the East sort of finish. And that's got to be disappointing for them as a program. So that's who I'm going to throw out there as a team that in the East gets a fart noise from me.
I don't care. I'll always laugh at fart noises. I don't care.
They're just good,
Yeah.
They're just good.
Fart noises only get funnier when you actually have kids because it's every second is just hysterical.
Yeah, because it's nonstop fart noises. Because
right. We all know this. Every single one of us here has kids.
Mm-hmm. I have several hundred.
I'm just saying that's something you guys have to look forward to. Like
dogs are child collector.
No, dogs are not kids. I've had several dogs, and the experience of having a child is very different than having a dog.
Are you sure?
Really doesn't seem like it to me. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Yeah, I feel like they're exactly the same.
I usually just scream at children to sit and stay.
Yeah. No. I've got at least one dog and 6 children over here, and it's all pretty much the same to me. They're all
so much easier to train.
A, they're all covered in hair. B, they're always trying to eat all my food. And C, they all sleep in cages. So,
are you sure that those are human children?
Yeah, of course. What else would they be? Anyway,
magic.
Here's an important question. Hey, how do you guys feel about? How do you guys feel about people sitting out of bowl games? You into that, or are you not into that?
Sitting out of bowl games?
Yeah, like in particular, let's just say, for example, maybe it's like a linebacker or something. Maybe it's, I don't know, Will Greer, your starting quarterback, and he sits out. Like,
yeah,
how do you feel just in general about that?
Well, so I want to break this down for me because I have a lot of thoughts about the bowl season right now. I think I'm to the point where I'm like, just do away with them. Like they don't really exist. They're not fun. I don't find them very fun. The only bowl games I've ever been to have not actually been fun. Like so on one hand, I think it's stupid that the players sit out because it's the last game and you should be a part with the team and you're competing. And if you're a true athlete and a winner, you want to win and stuff. And I get all that, right? But on the flip side of it, I get it from the players aspect because it's like these bowl games are pointless. I don't want to risk millions of dollars by not being injured. So my solution, or rather my feeling on the matter that leads to a solution, would just be do away with the stupid bowl games. Like, it only matters if they're in the playoffs. Just expand turn the bowl games into the stupid playoff or whatever and go that way. But that's too logical.
Yeah. No. March Madness in football. Get 64 teams or whatever, and let's just do this.
I don't hate the idea, to be quite honest, because that any given Sunday, Keith, anybody could win. No, I don't know, or Saturday, I guess on Sunday.
Any given random day of whatever week there is how to play a bowl game.
I think the sitting out stuff is kind of I think in the very near future, within the next 10 years, they're not going to do bowl games anymore.
At all.
I don't think so. That's my opinion.
Interesting.
I think I agree with some of what Rose said. But I think it's just up to each individual player. I mean, you saw some guys who said they weren't going to sit out. I think Jeffrey Simmons is a noticeable one. He's projected to go first round and is going to be probably a long time NFL starter. And then you got Greedy Williams, who did sit out and is also projected to go first. But that's not to say that each guy's situation is the same or that they're different. Just without knowing exactly what's going on, what's going into the decisions, those kinds of things. But I do think that the bowl games, not for every player. I mean, because again, look, if you're a guy like a Simmons, like a Greedy Williams, you go back the last few years, like a Leonard Fournette, a Christian McCaffrey, any of these guys who have sat out, and you're a surefire NFL prospect. You've got to, at that point, by the time you're going into the bowl game of your draft eligible season, you've got a pretty good idea of where you're going in the draft, even if you haven't gotten your official draft grade yet. And a lot of times these guys are getting their grades before the game. And so it's like if you're going into the season and maybe you're kind of a I don't know, late round, maybe you have a good year,
on the fence or whatever. Tape.
You might be a 6th or 7th round guy. It might be your first year as a starter or whatever, and then all of a sudden, boom, you shoot up to a 1st or 2nd round pick, and you feel like it's in your best interest to sit out. Then sit out. I mean, that's fine. It's your right. You can do what you want. But you get a lot of guys who either they know that when they walk off the field from that bowl game, they're never going to play football again. And so I think it just depends on each individual player and kind of what their own situation or scenario is going to be. And, I'm typically going to side with anything that's going to be pro player. And so if a guy decides it's in his best interest to sit out, then I'm not going to argue with that. I don't think you're going to see really too big of a fuss about it. I mean, people will talk, they'll have their Twitter takes or whatever, but I think like if this were, for example, if this were Tua's draft eligible season and he were having these ankle issues that he were having, and he decided to sit out to say, I'm going to be a first round quarterback. I'm going to sit out the playoff. Then I think you're going to look and say that's a big deal because that's going to hit the NCAA's bottom line, which is making money off these things, because really the NCAA only cares about money. But I think until that point, it's just going to be these kind of smaller issues. It's not going to be a huge deal. And I think a great way to offset that would be, if you're going to be okay with players sitting out, then just use that bowl game as a game where anybody can play, like any scholarship player can play in, so that, if you've got like if you're West Virginia and Will Grier sits out the game and you've got a 4 or 5 star quarterback waiting in the wings, you don't want to burn his red shirt. Well, then just say that game, the bowl game, doesn't count towards the 4 and they can play. So it gives your fans, you're bummed you don't get to see Will Grier or whoever, but you get to see the future of the program, and it doesn't hurt the long term potential of the program, because that guy doesn't lose his red shirt.
Yeah, that part of it makes a whole lot of sense. I'm more inclined to side with the players. I think what's going to end up shining a huge light on this as being a huge issue is the decision that Will Grier made. I don't know if a starting quarterback has ever sat out a bowl game before, just because. And if they have, I can't remember it. But Will Grier being such a huge part of that West Virginia offense, and it clearly showing that he was missed. Like, I think their backup did a really good job. I think he had a pretty good game, but it was clear that Will Greer kind of drives the bus for that offense, and they really missed him, and it made a huge difference for him. So
I bet you Aaron Rodgers would have set out a bowl game if he had the option. I feel like that's true.
Yeah, but he's kind of a douche.
That's what I mean, because like it feels so douchey to sit out. Like it feels so wrong. But I get it. Like that's what I'm saying. Like I get it. Like there's a potential of millions of dollars at stake for
especially since like first round draft picks get like these bonuses.
Yeah,
Will Greer's supposed to be one of the top quarterbacks off the board. A lot of the guys that set out are supposed to be first round draft picks. So I get, because bowl games are basically meaningless and just get your school extra revenue, I get wanting to make sure that your future is a little more comfortable by guaranteeing that you don't have some horrific injury.
But then at the same time, it's also there's also the element of like, come on, dude, just play. Like, come on, like these are your teammates. Like, come on, like you've been 4 years with these people or whatever, and like just play. There's that element. I
mean, is that camaraderie and that feel goodness gonna pay for your mortgage?
Potentially if you make the right teammate. With the right
Well, I mean, how many college students do you think have insurance policies? Like how many
I don't know.
How many top tier athletes in that have insurance policies out in case of injury?
I would hope all of them, to be quite honest.
I would, if I had, I don't know for sure, but I would guess a significant amount of them do if they're a prospective big time future pro.
Yeah. I would hope all of them, but that insurance company. If you're going to leave it up to insurance companies for them to pay out, like for them to pay out on an injury or something, like good luck. That's terrifying. So
you exploited your MCL. We only cover ACL. Sorry.
Exactly. Oh no, we only cover PCLs here. Sorry. This is
we are firmly a PCL firm.
We only cover half of the Achilles rupture that you got. Like, oh God, but what's a solution to it? Who knows? I mean, like the bowls have been such a staple of college football. It's hard to imagine a reality without them. But then it's also hard to imagine the reality of the stupid playoff for the next however many years. Something's got to give.
Just turn your bowls into one of the playoff games, and
just have a playoff. Solution. Yeah, I think that's the issue is that we all look at the playoff and people like it and they enjoy it, whatever, and then they do huge ratings, all that good stuff. But then you also have to stop and think that, like, okay, the BCS was a big step towards devaluing the bowl games, and this has been another step towards doing it, and this is just kind of some of the backlash that you had to expect was going to come with it. As the playoff became a bigger deal, maybe by expanding to 8 teams or 12 teams or whatever, maybe that's a step towards helping that problem. But right now, there's really only 3 meaningful postseason games, and that's 3 games in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But then you look and it's like Georgia loses to Texas and they're like, well, like Georgia was clearly disappointed. They didn't want to be there. It's like, well, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I have to think about this a little bit more, but I feel like those 2 arguments about players sitting out and then teams not wanting to be in a bowl game, like if you're going to say, well, Georgia didn't want to be there as like a valid excuse for why they lost the game, then you've got to turn around and say you have no problem with the player sitting out of the ball game.
Yeah. Right.
Because, the team didn't want to be there.
Yeah. I don't know that I have any more thoughts about it because it's too hard to I don't know. It all sounds very complicated, very hard to think about.
Yeah, I don't really give a shit about any of it. I just thought you guys would want to talk about that. So
sorry, we got to put that explicit tag on this episode.
Yeah, I guess that's going to wrap everything up here on this episode. A quick end of the season-esque episode of Running Out the Clock. We'll have more content coming up at some point in time, I'm sure. I will not make any promises.
More content?
Huh?
Nothing.
The word content is funny to Chandler now, so that's healthy, I guess. All right. I don't know what's happening anymore. I'm just going to go ahead and end this thing. This has been Running Out the Clock. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned for our AAF extravaganza coming up.
No, see, what I was going to say is every time we actually plug something specific, it never happens. So I was going to try to be very vague. Now you did it, Keith. Now we're never going to put out another episode.
What's going to happen?
We're not going to put out any more content, Chandler. Did you like that word?
Yes, I did.
More content.
That's a good one.
MOAR.
Oh, man. All right, this is Run Out the Clock. I'm Joseph Craven. Who cares who else was here? It doesn't matter.
I'm a person.
Young Sheldon coming up, and stay tuned for the season premiere of God Cop, only on NBC after this.
God Cop.